All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's webinar, Transition FAQ with Madeline. That's me. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, I am Madeline Webster. I am the Transition Navigator at St. Louis ARC. I have been here for a little over a year. Before that, I worked in supported employment, running a pre-employment program, being a job coach, and before that, even being a DSP. So I've seen lots of sides of all this. I included this really lovely quote from a parent that I worked with. She said, "The Family Navigation Services is by far the most important service that any special needs parent and loved one can use. It is really the missing link to identifying what your goal is for your child or loved one and to help you get there. I cannot thank you enough for your help. Thank you so much." And I share this because a lot of these resources that I'm going to go over tonight and a lot of these processes are things that might be a little overwhelming. So I just want to remind you that navigation services exist. So I'm breaking up this presentation into a series of common questions that I get organized under what we call the life domains, which is a life course concept. So everybody has different areas of their life that need attention. And so we're just gonna go through each of those, and I'm just gonna address some common questions that I get. So under daily life and employment, we're gonna be talking about how can we be preparing for employment after high school now? What options are there for employment supports after high school? What about college? And what if employment isn't a goal for us yet? I have given you guys a timeline, and I know it maybe is a little overwhelming to look at, so I'm going to walk through it piece by piece. So looking at early high school all the way into post-secondary and moving out of high school, there's a lot of different programs to consider. We have Teens in Motion, which is a program here at the ARC through our leisure department. It's for ages 13 to 15. That's one that you'll want to get on the wait list about a year in advance. So if you have, a 14-year-old and you really want them to try out Teens in Motion, probably now is when you're going to want to start doing that. That program incorporates some kind of cool camp activities and some volunteering so they can start to develop some employment skills. Neighborhood Experiences is kind of a step up from that for 16 to 21-year-olds. Still some of that fun, personal development, getting to know each other, community activities, but a little more focused towards those volunteer projects. We're also going to see SWEP and STEP. So it's SWEP, I'm missing an E. It's SWEP in St. Louis County, STEP in St. Charles County. That's the difference. It's a 6 to 8 week summer program. And you want to apply as soon as the school hands out applications, which is right about now. They'll start accepting those applications from about November to February. So you want to start to get those in soon. A lot of times families will reach out to me in April, May and say, what about a summer program? And it's past due. So be looking for those applications. There's also CBVI that's part of the school for people who live in St. Louis County. So part of SSD, Special School District. And you can talk to your IEP team about if you think that's a good fit for you. And that's just a program that's going to offer some job training skills through the school. You'll notice I'm starting with these gray ones. These are all kind of sort of employment specific paths. So then there's VSP. So in your years after graduation, up until you turn 21, you might be able to participate in VSP or vocational skills program. That's where you can go out in the community, do some work, gain some skills, and continue to receive some of those supports through the school. And then pre-employment, that's for people who are 18 and over. I like to tell people get on the wait list at least a year in advance. But especially lately with all the staffing shortages we're all dealing with, I say even earlier than that if you can. As soon as you know about the program, be reaching out to see if you can get on that wait list. And in St. Louis County, that's where our pre-employment program exists, and I believe also in St. Charles County. It's funded by our SB 40 board, so Productive Living Board or DDRB. So you're not going to have to navigate like waiver funding for that kind of program. And then after you're out of school, out of a pre-employment program, if that's something you choose to do, then you can seek supported employment. So usually in your final year of school, somebody from VR or vocational rehabilitation is going to come to your IEP meeting, and they're going to talk to you about that. They might perform some assessments, and they'll talk to you about if they're going to open a case as you exit school. And that's kind of like the money that's going to pay for supported employment, pay for job coaching, things like that. And then you'll notice I have some other things here. So if college is something you're interested in, and I encourage lots of people to think about college when maybe they haven't thought about college because they think maybe it's something that's going to be too hard for them, or they're like, I didn't like high school, or am I going to like college? I still encourage people to consider the option. I like to let people know about the Succeed program at UMSL, which is a non-degree seeking program for some people, although some people go on to get a degree, for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And it's on campus, it's an integrated program. And also to think about, maybe a full course load is too much, but there's also a lot of certificate programs you could do and maybe take 1 or 2 classes at a time to finish. So college tours, you want to start in your junior and senior years. Most people get college days at whatever school they're attending, where you get a free day. It doesn't count against you to go on a tour at a school. And you want to familiarize yourself with the difference between IEPs and disability support plans. A lot of people don't realize that IEPs are supported by the IDEA, which is Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, whereas those college support plans are supported by the ADA. And so the laws that support those are a little different. So your IEP, they have a responsibility to ensure your success, whereas a college support plan, they have the responsibility to ensure access. Those are 2 different things. File FAFSA as early as October 1st, and you can start applying to scholarships in the fall and spring in your last year at school. And then I like to also bring this in because another thing that comes into daily life and employment is things like day services. And you want to give yourself about 1.5 years to start thinking about that. You would apply for Medicaid at 18. You're going to begin tours of day programs in your next to last year and into your senior year. So that way you can start to think about which is going to be the right place for you. Our leisure programs do have a cost. So that's that Teens in Motion Neighborhood Experiences. They do have a cost. There are scholarships available though. So just check in with our leisure program and ask about that. SWEP and STEP is through the school and I think is funded through VR also. So you're not going to have to pay for that. CBVI also through the school, VSP through the school. I think I mentioned this, but pre-employment is typically paid for by the SB 40 board. And then VR is the funding source for supported employment. Is college an option for those graduating via IEP goals versus high school credits? Good question. So yes, some schools might be pickier. So it's going to depend on the individual college. Some community colleges in particular, especially for a certificate program, are not going to necessarily care that you got a diploma. A certificate is going to be fine. So it just depends. And yes, if you're in VSP, you can absolutely get on the wait list for pre-employment, because you're going to be, that wait list is long enough that you're going to want to be on it probably when you're in VSP. And then we'll take you off it when you're ready. Like if your name comes up before you're out of school, we'll just keep you on the list. You're not going to be in trouble if you don't jump straight into pre-employment. We want it to work with your school schedule. And then in terms of supported employment, you're going to want to start having those conversations, and VR is going to be involved. So pre-employment is a program that's typically 1 year long. It can be shorter, where you're doing volunteer work that's supported to develop your skills and to get you ready for employment. The goal is that by the end of that program, you'll be ready for competitive community employment, whereas supported employment, that's the goal of that. So that's when you're working with VR, you're actively seeking for a paid community job. So the next life domain that we're going to cover is community living. So Three questions I get, and honestly, I get a lot more about this, but I kind of narrowed it down, is what options exist for my child to move out of the home? How are they funded? And when should we start? And this is one that I also put on a timeline for you guys, just because I know that looking at some of this and how long you have to start working on some of these things in advance can be a little overwhelming. So I've created a timeline starting 3 to 5 years, all the way to moving out. I'll talk about two different kinds of living arrangements, because really that's what we're looking at. There's an ISL or an ISLA. There's also lots of, sort of creative, collaborative ideas you can come up with, but in terms of like provider option, those are kind of the two things we're talking about. So an ISL is independent supported living. That's like what we might call a group home. An ISLA, an ISLA, independent supported living arrangement, is for people who can live pretty independently. Typically, that's only going to cover about 12 hours of support a week. So if you're somebody that's going to need more support than that, we might need to think of some more creative solutions, or to talk about if a group home is going to be right for you or not. The group homes, or an ISL, are going to be funded by what's called a comprehensive support waiver. And I'm going to dive into waivers a lot more in a little bit, so don't panic, because I know I had a lot of questions about waivers. But there are typically there's two waivers that most adults will have. There's the community support waiver, and that might pay for things like therapies, that might pay for things like day services, PA supports. And then there's going to be the comprehensive support waiver, and that's kind of the big one. And that's the only one that's going to pay for an ISL, or residential, really. That ISL is the comprehensive support waiver is really competitive. I tell people to start thinking about it 3 to 5 years in advance. So when your child turns 18, if you're going to receive a Medicaid waiver, you're going to want to apply for Medicaid, or apply as soon as you're financially eligible. Some people meet financial eligibility before that. So you want to get on Medicaid. That's what makes you eligible to apply for a Medicaid waiver. You're going to go to the Department of Mental Health, and they're going to help you start the process to apply for the waiver. A lot of times, to get that comprehensive support waiver, they're going to want you to really prove that you've tried everything you can to be successful with less. So they're going to want you to maybe try the community support waiver first, and to try different interventions and therapies. They're going to want to see that you're really using that waiver meaningfully. So that's why I say, if you want this, you want to be thinking 3 to 5 years out, because there's going to be kind of a lot of stopping points that you're going to hit along the way. And then an ISLA is not going to be quite as long of a wait, because it's not funded by a comprehensive support waiver. It is funded typically by your SB 40 board. So for some of y'all, that would be PLB or DDR or DDRB or DBA. So those, it's not going to be quite as long of a process, although, like I mentioned with staffing issues, there's a bit of a wait everywhere. So it's always better to reach out and start asking places, what does the wait look like? What kinds of things do you think we should be working on to be ready for this? And then you'll notice in here, I have a couple different programs that might help you work towards whatever this goal is going to be. So Launch is a program that we offer for people ages 16 to 25 in the city and in St. Charles County. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe extending into Jefferson County. That program is funded by your SB 40 board, so it's free. In St. Louis County, however, it is not. It is private pay. This next program is Next Ed. See, it starts just a little later. So this is 18 to 25. And this program offers some one-on-one support to help you, or class support as you're working to learn some independence living skills. This program is brand new. It is still private pay. Another thing is pre-ISLA. So if you are just ready to move out, like you are, you have everything lined up, you are ready to go, you've worked on a bunch of skills, but there's maybe just a couple things you maybe need some help with before you're going to be ready to really be successful in an ISLA, then you can get pre-ISLA, where someone's going to come to your home and work with you on some of those skills. Maybe it's learning how to do laundry, or maybe learning some cooking skills, where they're going to help you really make sure that you're prepared to move out. So next is safety and security. And these are questions that I know can scare a lot of people. These are just a couple questions that I get. Who's going to take care of my child if something happens to me? How can I make sure that they're provided for? How can we secure benefits if they begin working? And waivers. So first, let me address this Q&A question. When do you put a child on Medicaid? If they are covered under your health insurance until age 26, should you put them on Medicaid sooner for benefits? If so, will they even take you if you have health insurance? Yes, so there are different eligibility requirements for Medicaid. One is going to be a financial eligibility requirement. One is disability. The other thing is you can have private insurance and Medicaid. So if you want, you could have Medicaid while still retaining that private insurance until your child turns 26. And one will be considered the primary, but you still have both, and you can reap the benefits of having a Medicaid, like a waiver, for instance, if you are able to, if you want to be on both, that's fine. And they will take you if you have health insurance. Like I said, there's eligibility in terms of financial need, which is why some people have to wait until they're 18, because it's going off of their parents' finances, not theirs. But if you wait until they turn 18, you can apply with disability as the eligibility requirement. I hope that made sense. So I gave you a couple tools in here, and I'm going to click on each of these. So this first thing I'm going to click on is the ARC Center for Future Planning. This is from the National ARC, not just St. Louis ARC. And they have this really great system for future planning. And it's going to talk to you about financial planning. It's going to talk to you about your estate planning, and working together with your whole family to decide what the future is going to look like. So I put this link in here because I really want you guys to be able to, go through it, look on your own. You'll notice there's an urgent help here. So like if something happened to you overnight, there are options out there to make sure that your child's going to be cared for. And then I also have this. This is another life course tool. If you know anything about the ARC, we talk about life course a lot. And I'm just going to talk about it real quick. So I really encourage people to click on this, download it, and fill it out. And what I find is a lot of parents feel a lot of anxiety when they start filling this out, because they start to go, oh my God, I'm in every single box. Who is going to fill that box when I'm not around anymore, or when I can't anymore? And so what I encourage people to do is to start thinking about small ways that people can step in. And to remember that this section down here, this caring for, is usually going to be taken care of. These are funded services. These are things that somebody can get paid to do. Caring about, different story, right? You can't pay somebody to love and care about somebody. So start to think about who in your life can do some of these things, because this is a little easier ask, I think, to start to bring people into your circle. And then you'll also see this working in benefits. And this is incredible. It was put together by our Kristen Rasparsky, who is our benefits specialist. And I had a question that was pre-submitted about working and benefits. So a lot of people are really scared to go to work because they're scared they're going to lose their benefits. And I understand that fear. That's a really big deal for a lot of people. But there are ways to avoid that. And so Kristen pulled this together, and it talks a lot about the different ways that you can kind of use loopholes and use, programs that are set up to make sure that your benefits are protected, but that you also have the freedom to pursue employment the way anybody else does. So if you want to contact Kristen, because maybe you have some specific questions about your own situation with benefits and working, her email is krasparsky@spark.org. So this is really comprehensive, and I think I pull this up all the time when I'm talking to families and these questions come up. Understanding waivers. I got a lot of questions about waivers. I get a lot of questions every day about waivers. I was just on a call about waivers. So I love this. This is another Kristen piece for us. So these are the waivers in Missouri. And you notice it has these two that I mentioned. These are the ones that are typically available for adults. So obviously you need Medicaid first. You need to be connected with DMH and ask them to help you start the application process. And then these are the programs that are funded under here. And you notice this is the one that has residential. It's going to be the only one that has residential. There's also information down here about waiver and support coordination. So when you go to the Department of Mental Health, sometimes called DMH, you'll also hear it called regional center or regional office. They really prefer you not say center these days. But you'll hear it called the regional office, and they provide some service coordination once you have that waiver to help you figure out how you're going to spend it. And then also, I'm not going to click on this, but that is a link to a workshop that we hosted about circles of support. So sort of back to that mapping family roles and thinking about who in your life can start to take some responsibility and help out with some of this future planning. This is a great workshop that highlighted a parent that we support who's done a really good job of expanding her network and using the people in her family's life and in her life to try and find a broader network of support so it doesn't always fall back on her. Also, to qualify for SSI and other programs, does a child need to be registered with DMH? How do you do this? We have a young teen and the level of disability is really only now becoming fully apparent. Good question. So you do not have to be registered with DMH to apply for SSI. Lots of people apply for SSI, and once the child turns 18, applying for SSI is going to be a lot easier, because when they're under 18, it's going to be based on your work history as parents. And when they turn 18, it's based on their own work history. So it's going to be a lot easier to wait until they turn 18. And you want to apply for SSI first and then for Medicaid, because typically the process of applying for Medicaid is a lot smoother once you've obtained Social Security, and then starting to work towards a waiver if that's something that you want and are going to qualify for. My child recently turned 18. Do you recommend that I contact the Department of Mental Health now to get started with post-high school services? If we should wait, what is the benchmark to contact DMH? You can contact DMH at any point. I think now that they're 18, you should be good. They might turn you away if you don't have Medicaid. So I would work on Medicaid. And and I would start now to start talking about post-high school services. If we are not guardians, then the disabled young adult is considered for waivers or benefits by his income or lack thereof. Yes. So yeah, the child's income, or the young adult at that point, their income is what's considered for benefits. Do you have to apply for SSI or Medicaid by a certain age? Nope, you can apply at any point. So maybe you're just now starting to kind of get in gear at like 28. That's okay. You can apply now. Good point. We found out it's not good to apply on the 18th birthday. You're right. You want it to be after the first month so that they're not counting your income for the month prior. Once my child turns 18, do I have to reapply for her Medicaid? Will her SSI continue? So you don't have to reapply, but things are going to look different. I would reach out to your Medicaid office and talk to them about that process and talk to them about what that transition is going to look like. What is the waiting time to obtain a waiver and or get into a group home? Yeah, so you'll notice a couple slides ago, I had up a timeline. I say if you want to get into a group home, to start that waiver application process 3 to 5 years before you want to be there. And I say that only because, like I said, there's going to be steps involved. They might want you to have the community support waiver first, and then they might want you to prove things aren't working at home. They're going to want you to have tried lots of different kinds of interventions, because they want to make sure that it's really what's the right move. I say start that process 3 to 5 years in advance. And it's probably going to be a process that you're going to start really after they turn 18. This is the waivers. So I've been talking about the community support waiver here and the comprehensive support waiver here. So the community support waiver, again, typically for people that are still living with their family. And so you'll notice that pans out in the services it provides. $28,000 annual limit. It does do transportation, but it really only does transportation to like a workshop or to day services. It's not going to provide transportation to like a community job or like the YMCA. It does not cover group home or ISL. It does cover ABA. It covers assistive technology, career planning, community integration services. That's kind of broad, but things like day services or programs that support sort of a healthy engagement in the community, transition programs, day habilitation, so that's like a day program, job development, occupational therapy, speech therapy, that's what OTST means, crisis intervention, transportation, again, that's pretty limited though, and respite. If you receive those things elsewhere, like if you get respite through us, for instance, through funded like through your SB 40 board, then it's going to revert to that first. And then the comp waiver, that's the big one. It is the only waiver that provides residential services. There's no individual cap, but again, it's going to be kind of determined by what you and your service coordinator together decide is going to be covered. And you're going to see there's a lot of the same stuff. The biggest difference is that this covers residential and this does not. But you can justify a lot of really like sort of cool things under a community support waiver or a comprehensive support waiver. You just have to work with your service coordinator to justify it. All right, healthy living. So when should we apply for Medicaid? I actually think we've covered that. Somebody made a good point, about a month after you turn 18. Can we keep my child on our private insurance and also go on Medicaid? Yes, you can. And I'll also say, yeah, Medicaid, if you meet financial eligibility, you can apply at any time. You don't have to wait till you turn 18 if you're going to be financially eligible. If not, about a month after they turn 18. Yes, you can have both private insurance and Medicaid. Your benefits might be slightly different on Medicaid if you have private insurance, and then let's say they stay on until 26 and then they go off. Then Medicaid, those Medicaid benefits will expand a little to cover things maybe they weren't before. Where can I have an assessment performed? So some agencies like VR or DMH are going to require proof of disability, and some are going to want a recent psych eval. I recently saw someone that was working on getting the comp waiver, and the diagnosis they had was autism, but it was given a long time ago when the child was 3, and that was the most recent diagnosis. The DSM's qualifications for autism, or the criteria, that's what I was looking for autism, have changed since then. So they had to have another psych eval done. Ask about getting it in school. Sometimes you're kind of up for one and it's maybe time to get it. And then where do we get therapies when we exit school? A lot of people don't think about that part of transition, is that if you're getting regular PT or speech or OT or ABA, and that's really been great for you and it's benefiting you, then when you exit school, you want to make a plan for where you're going to receive those services as an adult. So definitely reach out. We can help with a referral to help you find a provider that you're going to really like. Um, but just be thinking about, maybe we've been getting speech for a long time. Do we still really want it in adulthood? Maybe yes, maybe no, but just to think about. Social and spiritual life. So there's a lot that's here, and I have tried to make it sort of nice for you guys to be able to access some of this stuff. First, I want to show you this. This is called an integrated support star. It's another life course tool. And it's really just a problem solving tool. So you could just stick a problem in the middle. And let's say the problem is, I'll use the example of, maybe you want to get healthier. So maybe personal strengths and assets is that I'm really motivated and I enjoy exercise. And technology might be, I'm going to use an app to track my steps. And community-based might be, I'm going to sign up for the YMCA. Eligibility specific might be that through my insurance at work, I get to talk to a personal coach, and relationships might be that my best friend is going to start going on walks with me in the morning. So that's a super speedy example. But I wanted to show you that because on this next slide, you'll see I've created a lot of lists of tools for you based on those 5 areas. Personal strengths and assets. So I listed a lot of different things that are sort of common personal strengths and assets that help somebody develop their personal life. So remember, we're talking about social and spirituality. I know I distracted us with our question about health, but we're talking social and spirituality. So I'm kind, I'm a good listener, I'm not afraid to introduce myself, I empathize with others. And I challenge you to start thinking about, yourself or your child. What do they have to bring to the table? So I also linked to things that you can look at. This is a character trait self-survey that I really like. And you can go through and sort of circle, different kinds of character traits that you think that maybe you have, or you could write your own. And then there's a little sort of story you can write about that. This is an example. So I wanted to share that. And then there's also this interpersonal skills survey. So if you're not sure what your interpersonal skills are like, this is a survey that you can take, and it'll give you kind of an idea of maybe some things to work on. Okay. And then we have some technology. So obviously there's going to be a lot of links in this one. So I'm going to go through these. So Connect on Meetup. I am logged into Meetup. If you click on this and you do not have a Meetup account, you won't be able to get here. So make sure you go to meetup.com, create an account for yourself if you want to use this tool. And this is from Connect. And Connect is our ISLA program, if you remember, Independent Supported Living Arrangement. And you can scroll through all of these events, and most of these are free. So you'll notice there's Virtual Transition FAQ with Madeline, Zumba with Sam, Mindful Arts, lots of different free activities that you can do from home on Zoom. So that's one option. You'll also see Meetup for families and providers. So this is Connect, that's for our participants. This is for you guys as parents. We have a Meetup page for you too. So these are going to be more workshops, Q&As, things that are more geared to you. So these are all things that you can participate with for free for the most part on here. Quillo. So this is something we've been working on lately. Some of you may be familiar when I say Life Course Connect. That's something we've been doing with some families. We're in a pilot right now on this really cool collaborative project with Quillo and Life Course. And Quillo is an app that you could download right now and get connected with sort of short video segments that are sort of designed to inspire you. And I guess I can just click on it to give you an idea. So it's an app, like I said, short 60-second videos developed by Quillo. And from you, you can contribute to with fresh content delivered every day. And so, it's designed first for staff, which I actually was introduced to Quillo back when I lived in Indiana. It's from Indiana. So it's kind of cool to see it making its way over here. Bounce Forward on Facebook. Bounce Forward is a Facebook group out of our transition department that you can hop on, and we post all kinds of upcoming events, different activities we have going on, different programs, webinars that we think might be interesting to you for young adults to know about what's going on in the community so that they can participate. So that's the Bounce Forward group. If you search Bounce Forward on Facebook, you should be able to find it. Zoom, we all know what Zoom is by now, but in case you don't, there's a link. I also have this video from a workshop of ours about internet safety. So if getting on social media is something that your family is maybe a little nervous about because of safety, because of boundary issues, things like that. This video talks about some great parental controls, things like that. We also have a video about combating Zoom fatigue and about creating technology access. That was about helping people get access to wireless when they didn't before. We also have community-based. So again, I've made kind of a list of links for you. So I'm not going to click on this because it'll go to mine since I'm logged into Facebook, but Facebook events is a really good way to find out stuff that's going on in your community. You can find out stuff that's not necessarily just for people with disabilities. The YMCA, Jewish Community Center, Missouri Botanical Garden, Parks and Rec, and I think here I linked it straight to to this page because I think this is cool. You could look by amenities or outdoor attractions or sports and recreation facilities, just to look for cool stuff to do. I am a big foodie, so I'm a big fan of St. Louis Food Tours. It's a local food tour company. Explore St. Louis calendar. So I don't know if you've ever been on Explore St. Louis, but if you click on it, it shows you all kinds of stuff that's going on in the community. So there's all kinds of cool stuff, and you can sort of scroll through stuff going on to see what's out there. And maybe there's something that'll be fun. I've linked a list of St. Louis farmers markets. These are all the ones in St. Louis. And then, if you live in St. Charles, you can just Google St. Charles Farmers Market. And then United Ways Volunteer Center is another way to find out how to get involved in your community. Eligibility specific. So these are services that are for people with disabilities to help you make friends. So there's Best Buddies in Missouri. If you click on this, it'll help you register. Best Buddies is a program that links up people with disabilities and without to help sort of foster integration. Recreation Council, for those that aren't familiar, they'll help fund a lot of cool opportunities for getting involved in the community. St. Louis Arc Leisure, our calendar. Safe Circle is all about relationships and sexuality. Transition services. So these are our transition services. Lots of other people have them too, but I listed ours. So I talked earlier about Launch, which provides coaching and classes to help people launch right from being stuck on their parents' house into a full adult life. and then also Next Ed, and then Bounce Forward. Those are free events out of our transition department that are going on all the time. If that's something that you are interested in, those are free and you can find out about them. And then here, so a lot of times, I think people get kind of confused about the funding sources for stuff. So DMH is one funding source. The schools sometimes, are a funding source in terms of they provide a service. There's Voc Rehab is a funding source. But also in Missouri, we have SB 40 boards. So in St. Louis County, that's Productive Living Board. In St. Louis City, it's DDR, Developmental Disability Resources. In St. Charles, it's DDRB. In Jefferson County, it's DDA. And so what I've done here is I've linked each of those. So let's say you live in St. Louis County. These are the funded services. So you could search by age or you could search by category. So let's say you want to know about employment training. These are places that provide employment training funded in St. Louis County. So that I think is a really easy way. And each of those links will take you to your own county's version of that. Launch Family Support Group, it is not just for families participating in Launch. In fact, Launch Family Support Group existed first. And so, but I would say most families that participate in Launch are in the support group, but you don't have to be in Launch to participate in the support group. Hope that makes sense. And then also Transition Planning Support Group. So I know the names are really similar. It might be a little confusing. Launch Family Support Group, this is how I would describe it, is for people with some lower support needs, people that have goals of employment, maybe even college, of independent living. But what I learned is as I was hosting those groups, I started to have some parents come to me and say, you know what, I'm feeling a little isolated by these discussions because these just aren't the goals that we have right now. We're looking at ISLs, we're looking at day programs. And so I created this group as a secondary group for families of kiddos with some higher support needs. Launch Family Support Group, the young adult attends with the parent. Transition Planning Support Group is just for parents. We meet on the fourth Tuesday of each month from 4:30 to 6, it's a little earlier. And then St. Louis Self Advocates. I mentioned this earlier. This is a group that I advise. I say advise because I really don't run it. The Self Advocates run it. They're the boss of them. So it's a group that meets every single week on Thursdays. Right now we are meeting virtually, but we do have some events in person. Anyone in the St. Louis area with a disability between the ages of 13 and 29, if you're outside of that age range and you just want to come, that's okay. You just aren't a voting member. That's the only difference. You're still welcome to attend the meeting. What can I get from the group? You'll gain confidence, tools to advocate for yourself in your daily life, opportunities to make a real change in the lives of people with disabilities. All members develop leadership skills and have the opportunity to run for elected positions, which looks great on a resume. And then they came up together with this mission statement: we're St. Louis area youth seeking to empower each other, increase awareness about disability-related issues, and improve our community. All right, so relationships. This is what I call, and I didn't make this up, I learned this actually at a conflict mediation training. They're called circles of affinity. You notice the circles as they go further out are going to show people that you know less about. So the people on your very innermost circle are the people that you'll be the most vulnerable with, that you'll tell your deepest, darkest secrets to. Your next one out is like your close friends, people that maybe you'll be a little vulnerable with, but maybe not your deepest, darkest secret. Maybe not someone you might cry in front of, for instance. And then one circle out is people that you're friendly with, people that maybe, acquaintances, you have some rapport. This is a good one for, I think, coworkers. Coworkers fall in here a lot. And then acquaintances that I know very little about. Maybe somebody I pass every single day in school, but I don't really know their last name. And so I challenge people to print this out and to fill it out for your family member or for yourself. And think about, when we're talking about expanding your friend circle and growing a social network for yourself. Maybe you have a lot of people right here, acquaintances, but you want to have more friends. So you can start to brainstorm together. How can I bring some people a little closer? Could I maybe invite some of them out to do something sometime? Could I have like a supervised group chat with a couple people? Things like that. Advocacy and engagement. Is guardianship right for me and my family? What alternatives exist to guardianship? What avenues are there to get engaged in disability advocacy? And how do I navigate a relationship with my adult child with a disability? So I'm going to provide some resources for all of that, all those questions. So the first one, I'm going to go back and forth a little. Is guardianship right for me and my family? I think, so first of all, Missouri has some of the highest rates of guardianship in the country. One of the reasons for that is that it's just sort of a habit at this point. Lots of doctors are used to saying, oh, don't forget, you're going to want to get guardianship when your kid turns 18. I think schools are not doing that quite as much as they used to. But it is sort of, it's a cultural thing. It's something that we're working to really think about and be a little more critical of. Guardianship is not right for everybody. It is right for some people, but it's right for probably a lot fewer people than who have it, is what I'll say. So I've linked this website. This is from the state of Missouri, Missouri Guardianship, Understanding Options and Alternatives. And it has some really great resources in here if you're thinking about it. It's got training. There's like a free workshop that you can do to think about it. And then down here, there's some materials. A lot of people have seen this. I email this to a lot of people. It's a really long packet. Not everyone really wants to read the whole thing, but you can skim to the important parts. Identifying alternatives. One of the things that we're going to talk about is called supported decision making. I'll get to that when we're talking alternatives in a second, but this is a great tool. This is actually based on a life course tool to figure out where someone maybe needs support making decisions and maybe where they can make their own. So can they do it independently most of the time? Can they do it with assistance, or are they going to need somebody to do it for them? And those are important questions to start asking. This is something I have a lot of parents fill out with me to really think about. Is guardianship what we want? Again, more life course tools. These people are our people, right? One thing I do like to make sure people know is that guardianship in Missouri means that the person loses the right to vote and the right to get married. Not everyone knows that when they choose to get guardianship for their child. And the other thing is that it's kind of hard to reverse, because ultimately the court is saying this person is incompetent, cannot make decisions for themselves. That doesn't mean this person is incompetent and can't make decisions for themselves, but maybe someday they'll be able to. It means they can never. And so if you do that when your child turns 18, it is really hard to reverse. So you'll see I have links to these guardianship workshops we've put on for information about what that actually means and what it includes and how it impacts things like benefits, stuff like that. I super suggest watching those. And then let's talk about the alternatives, because like I said, guardianship I think is appropriate for a pretty small number of people. So most of us should be looking at some alternatives. One thing is power of attorney. You could get power of attorney over finances or medical decisions. And that's something that could be reversed. Like, let's say maybe right now they still got some impulse control going on. There's some things that maybe they still need some support with. And so you are going to retain some control over finances. But, maybe by the time they're 30, maybe they're going to be a whole different person by then. Maybe they're going to be able to do some of these things they couldn't do before. So definitely power of attorney is an option. Also supported decision making. So that's like a contract that you go into where you agree to make decisions collaboratively. So, and then if you want to get involved in disability advocacy work, this is something I'm really passionate about. I care a lot about policy work and legislative advocacy, these are all really great resources for that. And then Joyzen is a great program